Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 11 of the Yakking podcast. We talk about life, business, and more, and we bring you tips and ideas for a changing world. As always, we have interesting guests for you, and we have another really interesting guest today. And before I introduce her, I'm just going to let Kathleen say hello quickly. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, Peter. Hello, Nancy, and welcome, everyone. Great for you to be with us today.
Good. Nice to see you again, Kathleen. And our guest today is Nancy Lou Henderson, a very interesting lady from Texas. She is a writer, a blogger, an author, and I have known Nancy online for 2 or 3 years. We support one another and follow one another on various social media platforms. She is far better at it than I am, and she is a prolific writer. So, welcome, Nancy. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Hello, Peter and Kathleen. Thank you for having me. I am from Sweeney, Texas. I was born in a little town called Hyco, Texas, and I currently live about 30 miles from the Gulf Coast. I've lived here about 37 years now, so I am one of these people who you will see wearing pearls and lace and coveralls. I do anything and everything. I can crochet, I paint, I knit, I do a hat, which is something that is nobody does anymore, quilt, and I also plumb and roof and weed eat and mow the grass. I was fortunate. My husband taught me how to do everything. We did everything together. So that's basically who I am. I was a sister of four. I have 4 brothers. I was the only girl next to the oldest, and I was a wife, a mother of 1 son. We only have 1 son, and I am a grandmother and a great grandmother.
Wow.
So, my goodness, Nancy, you've built quite a career for yourself in writing. And I've had the pleasure of reading some of the stories that you've posted on your website, and you've written a book. It's amazing to me. So can you tell our listeners and viewers how you got started? How did this all start with your writing?
Actually, I never planned on being an author. I think the reason I'm an author is actually greater than that I'm an author. I make sure that people know that. I actually started in 2015. I had been mowing and doing things, and I was hot and tired. And at that time, my husband had been deceased for 18 years, and we were soulmates. I'm a forever widow, which means that our love goes on through eternity, and it's not till death do you part, it's till I get there. Anyway, and then we're not parting ever. But I was upset, and I had a little prayer holler match with God about what was going on. I thought, what do I need to do to get to Him? You know, is there a purpose to what I'm doing? I'm tired of just cleaning the house and doing the weeding and doing the yard. Had been retired about 5 years. I said, I need to know, and of course it ended up with me crying and telling him I wasn't really mad at him. But when I went to bed that night, I had a dream. And in that dream, my husband came to me and told me to look in the cedar chest. And we have a cedar chest in the house. It's in another room, and actually it holds everything. Satchels with stuff from the funeral home and all of his little mementos, his jewelry, things like that are in that cedar chest. And that kind of ticked me off just a little bit. And then I looked up and I said, Dimples, you want to look in that cedar chest, you go flying on in there, because that's all up to you, because I know what's in it. Well, I laid back down to go to sleep. And then I sat up because I recalled that we had another cedar chest, but it was out in a shed in the backyard. And it's about a 10 by 15 shed that's floored. I had moved it out there after he had died because it was very heavy and I couldn't hardly move it. And I thought, what is in this cedar chest? You know, when did I last put anything in there? You know, we'd moved it around all of our life, you know, but as to what was in it, I had no idea. So I had to wait till the sun came up because there's no light out there. So I made coffee and sat and I tried, and I could not remember what was in there. So as first light, I go running out there. I'm opening the door and throwing stuff that my kids have stored off the top of it, and finally opened it. And I noticed that there were some even rice bags that were still intact from when we married. And this was 2015. We married in 1968. And then I noticed a box on the right-hand side. And I opened it and I could see letters. And I thought, what is this? So I go and put the lid back on, and I come running into the room that I'm in now, and I opened the box and I looked and I noticed the addresses and everything. And these were letters from Frank when he was in Vietnam. And I had about 150 of them. They're even some from before we married when he was in basic training. And which I should explain to you, we actually had our first date the end of November. We got engaged in February, and we married in May after he got back from basic camp. Our first date, he walked me to the door. He kissed me goodnight, and he says, I love you. I'm going to marry you. And I said, I know. We were perfect soulmates.
Wow.
And we knew it, you know. Anyhow, I started reading these letters, and I'm laughing and crying because instead of a young woman reading those letters terrified and trying to help him through the depressions and different things, he was going through so many different, he'd be upset, he'd be depressed, and he would actually talk to me in these letters. And when he did, you could see the writing change. And you could see him writing better and better until when he told me he loved me, his writing was beautiful. But you could see, that's the beauty of a handwritten letter, which I don't know if you know, that's something you don't get in text. And you can feel the emotions coming off the page. When I actually wrote those into the book, I typed them. But when I put them from the type to the computer, I had to get out the letters themselves and hold them up and retype from them to get the emotion of what I needed to put between the letters. Anyway, so we're back to letters, and I thought, wow, you know, and of course, reading them at 65, knowing he made it home was entirely different. But I noticed the beauty of what he was saying and everything. He talks to you like you're in the room with him in these letters. You know, even to the point of, oh, I got to get that mosquito, you know, just a minute, you know, or something like that. And so I was putting the last letter in, and I noticed the letter was underneath all of them. And I pulled it out, and they were under fire. He was trying to make light of it like it's no big deal, you know, and he was Army intelligence, so he was in a room when they were using what they, you know, called a mill to type on. And he said, I have to get off of here and write. I can't get any feeling writing to you on this mill, typing. So he realized the importance of the handwritten letter also. So he started writing, and he said, what I need you to know is our love was like wine. It's like a new wine. But once it's been aged and tested over and over, it becomes a fine wine. And now it's the greatest thing God has ever created. And he says, nothing can keep us apart, not even death. That was the message. That's why that letter was underneath. That was his message to me is, I'm with you, Nancy. I'm here. Don't worry about how old you are, what you're doing. I'm always here. And so I realized that was a message from him. And then I also realized the importance of the letters. And I thought, oh, wow. So I'll type these up and put them in a thing for my grandkids. And as I started typing the letters, stories came to me of our life together, and they came so quickly, I could barely type them. And it's like 40 or 60 stories of us together doing silly things and everything. And I realized at that time that God had a purpose in all of it, and it had to do with marriage, and it had to do with commitment, unselfishness, even, suffering through being separated. It had to do with so many things. We had trouble having a child. That's all in there. I know how people feel. I know, and I didn't leave anything out. His letters are not allowed to be edited whatsoever. I don't mess with that. He has messages in his letters, and they need to come out too. He was also a man who could tell me how much he loved me. That didn't hurt his manhood. He even talks about that in a letter. I used to think that it was so unmanly for a man to tell a woman how much he loved her because she would think him weak. He said, but I realize now that you love me even more because I can do that. And so he has messages to men out there too. Don't be afraid of them. If you love someone, tell them. So it ended up that I put all of the excerpts of letters and stories up on Facebook, and then I ended up having people sent by God to me because I didn't look for an editor. I didn't look for someone to help me with a website. They were sent to me. Chuck was sent to me. Tony was sent to me. And I see people out there, I don't know how to find an editor. I don't know how to do that. And actually, Tony is a publisher editor and has his own publishing company. But he didn't do that. He let me self-publish. He just sets up the book and edits, what he can and everything. And then, he does that for a very modest fee for me. It's unbelievable. I even told him, I said, Tony, and he said, no, he likes the story. But, when God keeps sending people,
sure.
Nancy,
you said that when you asked the question about your purpose in life, and that night you had a dream and your husband came to you in that dream. Was this a natural occurrence, a common occurrence for him to come to you in your dreams? And was there always a message?
Yes. Yes. Anytime I was upset about something or worried about something, and he knew me so well. He knew I was very private. I would not share emotions, and you'll find that out. I had to, in writing the books, when I'm talking in the letters, someone came to me on a PM. He said, you're not letting us know how you were feeling during that time. And I realized that was still so very private to me, how, I was an emotional wreck. Get up, go to work, come home, cry, maybe eat, go in and write a letter, cry again, grab his shirt from the thing and go, and Frank realized that's one reason I was set up in a home by myself before he left. We shared that for 45 days. He wanted to be able to see me there and realize, and us to have spent time there together before he went to Vietnam. But anyway, it's he has come to me in other dreams. If I'm upset, he'll jump on a bed or do something silly. It's he's wind chimes. He has a wind chime. He lets that go. And the first time he did it, I thought, wow, and I went over there to it because I was upset, and I was sitting there, I was tired. And I keep our yard because he loved the yard, and you would see him just looking at it afterwards. And we did it together a lot. But anyway, I'd go over there and stop it, and thinking it was a bug, and I sat back down, it started again, and my grandson witnessed this as he came up. It was ringing, and it drew attention from him to it, and he goes and stops it, and then he tells me, that's weird, Mimi. And I told him, I said, that's just your papa. But he has seen him. He has actually seen him in his house. They were very close, and he walked into his kitchen when he told me about it when he was 7. He said, Pawpaw came to our house. And I said, he did? And he said, yes. He said, I walked into my kitchen, and he was there making a bologna sandwich, and he said, "Boy, do you want a bologna sandwich?" And anyway, he said, then he disappeared. But the first time he did this, and I'm going to tell you this story because it's very special. Frank died on January the 30th. Matthew's birthday, to be, I think he was going to be 5, was January the 31st. We came home. We did not tell him, because when they tried to tell him at the hospital, he went berserk and tore up things. They were like very close, very, very close. He followed him around. They lived in this apartment right here I'm in is now a game room. They lived right here. And our backyard, you know, is their backyard. So anyway, no one was to tell him. We went home, had a birthday party that night at a restaurant. Everybody is trying to, you know, be lighthearted about it. We're all in grief, but we don't want Matthew's birthday to be associated with his death. You know, that's important to us. And so Frank had ordered him a bicycle. So we went over to Frank's folks afterwards. Even my parents, everybody went there. And I said, well, Matthew, there's a surprise for you from Papa and I out in the garage. And we went out there, and we got it out, and he says, I can't ride it. Papa's not here. And he took it back into the garage, and then he came back out, and he said, Papa says it's okay to ride it.
Wow.
And so he's not the only one. I have grandkids that didn't know him that went directly to his picture and said, Papa. So he got to hold them before I did. It really, but you know, they are there. He's always been around me. I've always felt him. And he's done some unusual things, but it's usually if I'm upset about something, you know, that he lets me know, you know. But another thing, this one will be even different. A girlfriend of mine's husband died, and I saw her at a doctor's office, and she had been reading the stuff online that I put, and she says, I wish my husband would come to me like that. And I said, he will. Just, you know, you have to be still and recognize what's happening and realize that that's them, and they're trying to let you know they're there. And anyway, so we departed ways that day, and about a month later, she got seriously ill, and she was dying. And before she left, though, we talked about, and I said, you know, I told her about the wind chime, and she says, maybe I need to get a wind chime. I said, yeah, that'd be cool. I said, you get one, and I've got one in my bedroom that's just decorative. And I said, then if one of us dies before the other one, we'll ring it. And she said, yeah, that'd be cool. We can test this out, you know. Anyway, I had no idea she was going to get ill. She went in for just a simple surgery, and it ended up that she lost both legs and she was dying.
Wow.
And they cut the aorta some kind of way. It was a back surgery. And then I saw where she was, you know, the next day they were thinking about taking her off machines, and they were moving her to another, a home to do that somewhere. I don't know, in Houston. And so that night, I went to bed, and in the middle of the night, that stationary wind chime in my bedroom, it was bouncing up and down.
Wow.
And I thought, what is this? And I knew immediately it was her.
Yeah.
And I went but not only did she do that to me, I went and found out she had died the next morning during the night. But a friend of hers was on there and said, how could that be? I got an email from her this morning telling me how much she loved me. So they can do things, and I knew at that time, I thought, that thing never rings. It was just bouncing,
Wow.
But you know, they're around us. They're right there. They can do things. Sometimes it takes some of them a while to figure out how to do it, just like us. But God allows that. Why wouldn't he? You know,
Sure.
You think about, why would he not love us enough to let the ones that we love stay around us and protect us? Anyway, enough said.
I know Kathleen had another question she wanted to ask you, Nancy.
Oh, I was just, all the following, the following of people that you now have going to your website and reading your posts and your books and all the chapters in your books. How did you gain all that following? Was it organically grown through family, friends, and then people sharing, or did you do a lot of work in social media to try to get more of a following? How did you grow that?
Once we got the website, Chuck Bartok helped me with the website. And once we got set up there, because he was so interested in it and wanting to get these books out, we started sharing chapters of the book on all medias. I was on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, I always say that wrong, sorry, and Medium, and I just started sharing it out there. And now I'm also on Booksy, which is a great place for any author. It's mostly authors on there, but it gives you a good place to go and share your work also. And I did, a few boosted posts to get it going. I shared at least 2 chapters of a book in a widow's blog. I also write humor, as you may know. I'm humor. And so I would do that once a week. I was really pushing it out. And actually that from April of 2018 until now, I have 85,000 people have been up there. But
Wow.
I published 3 books last year, and they were all shared chapter by chapter. So the thing is you've got to get a Facebook page, not profile, but a page, and it should be an author page. And I don't just share my chapters. I share a little bit about me. I'll go in there and say, hey, thank you, and go up there, leave me a comment. I like your comments, and the books are also sold up on the website. They're also sold on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. But the whole idea is to get readers to read what you have written, and with a God purpose, you have to get it out there. And so the more I shared, the more people shared, and the more people found out. I went into writers groups. I went into different areas there and started, they have share days, and people started reading, and then other people shared my work. That's what we do for each other, and family. Yeah, they were big involved in it, but it's, you want to get out of your basic family group and get them interested in sharing too. I think that you have to work hard. I work every day. I was on that computer or on my phone, going to Facebook, going to Twitter, sharing their stuff, and I think, to me, it was easier for me to write a review of someone else's stuff than my own, because it's just, I'm not used to talking about myself. I'm sorry. This is the most I've talked about myself, and I'm trying to push it to somebody else right now. But you have to be a helper. You see authors who are critical, and I can't get anyone. Well, really, you wrote a book, you think you just sit there and watch it and look at it and it's going to go somewhere? No. And to me, it was fun. I was learning new things. Sure. And believe me, before I got on this computer in 2018, I had never touched a computer in 10 years or more. I didn't even know what a URL was. I didn't know anything about anything. Wow. I worked as a pharmacy tech. We had a program. We went into that. That was it.
My goodness.
Very good.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Nancy. I have another question for you, and it's really of a personal nature. And I know that you've been a widow now for many, many years. And I have my dad that's currently in long-term care, who's in palliative care right now. And I look at my mom and the connection that they have. And so is there any words of wisdom that you can impart that I may be able to share with my mom? Because I think she will need that, anything at all.
Yes, I think the main thing I would tell her is it's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay. Don't let people tell you you can't just cry. I took a different road. I owned a florist at the time. Frank actually fell at that florist and went into grand mal seizure. I had to go back to work, and I worked. I worked and I worked and I worked. And my folks stayed here, just for a month or more, trying to. I didn't cry. I didn't cry at the funeral. Everybody was losing it. I could look at my son had lost his dad. His brother and sister had lost their oldest brother. My family thought of him. I had two brothers that were 10 and 12 when we married. They thought of him. He was our leader in both families. And his mom walks up to the casket and says, "What happened to Scott, my son?" Parents had lost their son, grandparents had lost their grandson. There was every kind of grief in the world. And I asked God, I said, please let me hold this together to get this done, because I could see the grief. And I thought, and my mom would come to touch me. I said, "Mom, you can't touch me. Not now. Not now. You can't touch me." And so I did not cry until everybody left. And I went in the closet and I grabbed his clothes and I screamed and I cried. That was the first night he touched me. I felt him touch me on the shoulder. And so I would tell your mom, don't cry. Anyway, I would tell your mom, go ahead and grieve, but he is there. If she will just wait, and you too, he's gonna come to you. You're gonna feel him, and you're gonna feel him. I think of my dad every once in a while, and I know he's right there by me. When you think of him, or when something you see and you think, "Oh gosh, that reminds me of Dad." He's right there. He wants you to know that. And the same thing with your mom. He's going to be right there, and all she has to do is be still and know God allows that. And not to feel like he's left her, but he's still there. He's just physically, she can't see him. There's another plane, and I call it heaven. I know there's a God. He's let me know that too many times. I know there's a God, and I know there's a heaven, and I know they're waiting for us there. They just can't be with us right now. They fulfilled their purpose, and we still have ours. So we have to go on.
Wow. Thanks for that, Nancy. We're running out of time. Nancy, people who want to follow you or buy your book, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
You can go to nancylouhenderson.com, and there's a link there. Navigate and find that link there. You can go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon. All the books are up there, and they're also they're in paperback and they're in ebooks. Smashwords has ebooks out there, and right now they're free. The ebooks are up on Smashwords, and I dropped the price down on Amazon on the ebooks. I think there's a button also on Nancy Lou Henderson author page on Facebook where you can click on that and it'll take you right up to the website.
Oh, that's great. And for our viewers, there'll be a caption underneath on on this video where you can pick up those contact details for Nancy. Nancy, it's been a wonderful experience listening to you, and it really is a wonderful story. I'm so glad our paths crossed on Twitter about 3.5 years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago, and we kept in touch, and I've watched your meteoric rise as a published author, and And you're an inspiration for all of us who are trying to write. Any last words, Kathleen?
I just want to thank you so much, Nancy. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to reading more of your stories. So thank you for joining us today.
And that's
Thank
it
you.
for another episode of the Yakking podcast with Peter and Kathleen and guest Nancy Lou Henderson.